What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Oddball. Yes, I'm still in Las Vegas. NBA Cup Final is tonight, but it's Tuesday, so you know what we got to do. We're playing Trivia Tuesday. Yeah. No copyright infringement over here for that Wii music. All right, it's Tuesday, and we got a great guest. He is the former beat writer for the Denver Nuggets for the Denver Post, but he's a published author now. He's the author of the new book, Why So Serious? The Untold Story of NBA Champion Nikola Jokic. It's Mike Singer, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get a round of applause. What's up, Mike?
How you doing, man? I appreciate you guys having me on.
We appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the book and kind of the behind-the-scenes thing about Nikola Jokic, who he is, really, what makes him tick. But of course, we've got to do it within the format of the show, which is Trivia Tuesday. Charlotte's out, so we went to the bullpen and we got producer Antonio to be our show host. Take it away, Antonio.
Thank you, Amin. I'm glad to be the enforcer of the show format for today. Let's go over the rules quickly. The rules are very simple. We have up to 6 different questions for each contestant. Whoever gets the most questions correct is the winner. Shocker. You're encouraged to think out loud. You're only allowed one final answer, though, and in the event of a tie, a subjective tiebreaker question will be posed by yours truly to break the tie. Do we all understand the rules? I mean,
sure.
Okay.
The rules are, Mike, just to give you a heads up, the rules are designed for you to win. That's basically the gist of this show.
Which is kind of terrifying. What if I don't win? Then I'm gonna be like, oh damn. Well, my bad.
I think you'll feel differently after you hear all these questions, but let's tear through them. All right, Mike, here's your first question. Who is the only player in the NBA with over 600 total points, 150 assists, and 250 rebounds?
Yeah. That's a tricky one. Well, I guess it's not Nurk. I guess it's not former Nuggets center Mason Plumlee. Not Mozgov. All right. I guess I'll go Joker. Screw it. Let's go for it.
You overcame the odds there on that one, Mike. Yes, that's right. As of Monday morning, he has 629 points, 195 assists, and 265 rebounds. He's a -110 favorite to win MVP on DraftKings Network. Mike, you know you're here because of your book. You covered the Nuggets for the Denver Post for Jokic's first 2 MVP seasons. But how did the idea for this book come about?
It came about because I covered him for 5 years at the Post. And I always felt like if I advanced his story by like a quarter of an inch of what we knew about him, then it was a huge win. And the way I've been describing, with this book is I think I blew the floodgates open in terms of like the vast majority of stuff, everything from Serbia and then a lot of stuff in the NBA, people had no idea about. And that's kind of by design. Nikola doesn't like sharing stuff. He'll give you little tidbits, little breadcrumbs, and then you got to go digging, like basically on an international treasure hunt to try to learn about this dude. And so I had, threads to pull, but I never really had time or a budget at the newspaper to really just sink in on him. But the amount of game stories and the amount of recaps that I was tired of doing made it a kind of easy decision to leave the paper and dig in on this dude who is an all-time generational player who, frankly, NBA media knew damn near nothing about. From that perspective, it was not that hard a decision, but I was like, there's a story, there's a book worth pursuing. And, you go to Serbia, people open up their doors, invite you to meals, drink some rakia with you, you learn some stories, and it's just, how fun this was, I can't even, hopefully we get into it, but it was an amazing challenge that I could never have done with the newspaper.
Mike, I want to ask you, because you said people open their doors for you, even though Nikola Jokic at the same time is a very guarded person and he keeps a very tight circle. How easy or difficult was it for you to get access and to get these people to open up? I mean, even the Nikola himself is quoted many times directly by you in the book. How hard was it to get these people to open up?
So I had a relationship to a degree with some of the people in his orbit in Serbia, his godfather, some of his coaches. And, I talked to them, even like Nemanja and Strahinja, his brothers, to some degree. And I had talked to them, intermittently when I was covering them from the newspaper. But so I had something there. So I knew if I went to Serbia, I knew that there would be a chance that we could just keep exploring and dive a little bit deeper. So I was not necessarily starting from scratch, but frankly, like I knew I had a better chance than I think any other media person, just because I had some semblance of relationships with people in his orbit. So, did people open up their doors? His godfather talked to me on the phone for like an hour. Then I went to Sombor and sat down with his first coach for multiple hours, multiple discarded beer mugs, some rakia. Like we got into it. And I mean, to the point where I'm sitting there like 2-3 hour recording, and I need to go back and listen to this. And then I do like a follow up interview with this dude just to be like, hey, let's hammer down some of this stuff. And his dad only speaks Serbian. So I had this translator, and his dad, and we send his dad 10 questions. His dad wrote out a 5-page handwritten note answering all the questions that he then sends via PDF form. So when I tell you that I had, his people quasi participating, and by the way, that PDF, I'm sending that to the Naismith Hall of Fame at some point in Serbian. And so I had people participating, and then Nikola knew at some point the people that I had talked to and respected it, and he ultimately agreed to sit down with me too. So when I had that, I knew I had gold. And like I've told people, I think I was writing for one person, and if this dude appreciated the job that I did, I don't really care if anybody else liked it.
Yeah, Antonio, by the way, I love how Mike gave us the oral history of Nuggets centers to start his answer. Yes. I was waiting for Marcus Camby to pop up there, and Dikembe Mutombo, and some other guys.
Again, there were no parameters. I was like, what are we talking about? Like this season? Like maybe I missed it, but all right, at least we can drop Timothy Mozgov on the bingo card.
There you go.
There you go. Timothy Mozgov mentioned in 2024. There it is. Amin, let's enforce the format. We're going to your first question here. Which player has Nikola Jokic assisted the most in his career?
Jamal Murray. Yeah. I started going crazy, thinking about he throws a lot of lobs to Aaron Gordon. Then I thought about it. No, he's played with Jamal Murray pretty much for, what's that, 8 years now? However long that career's been.
9,
something like that. He's assisted Murray 734 times. Up second is Michael Porter Jr. with 504. Aaron Gordon's third with 485. Mike, do you have any insight into Jokic and Murray's relationship, just doing the research of the book, or maybe just how he approaches being a teammate in general?
Yeah, so I mean, the format of the book was I basically just did I did 95 chapters. Every chapter was kind of just like a long feature story,
nice.
Like a long newspaper feature story essentially. And Jamal has his own chapter, and so I did talk to Jamal for the book. He gave me some time. He and I have a pretty good relationship going back a few years, and one of the cool things he told me about him and Nikola's relationship is they don't have a handshake. They deem it their quasi handshake. It's just like how they run their pick and roll actions. That's what they call their handshake. Like they call it I forget. It's like an elbow sequence or whatever. It's like the cat and mouse. Like, is it the short roll, the bounce pass, or is it the back and forth that they play? That's what they deem their handshake. And Jamal straight up told me, he was like, "Look, man, I realize that I'm the number 2 here. I realize that, this is not my team, and this dude's going to go down as an all-time great. I think I'm okay with it." And so I don't know that, Jamal ever feels like he needs enough elbow room, but let's call a spade a spade. He knows that he's playing with a legend, and the fact that, he's cool with it if Nikola is the one taking the last shot. And maybe, I think we kind of understand the pecking order. I don't think there's any question about the pecking order, but let's just reinforce that Jamal knows it and he's good with it.
Speaking of the team in general, one thing Amin and I, we've talked about in meetings before, is how the Nuggets this season, when Jokic is on the court, it's like an all-time great offensive team. When he's off the court, they are an all-time horrible defensive team. How do you think? Yeah, offensive team. Yeah. How do you think he manages that? We've shown footage on the show of Jokic rolling his eyes at that. When he sees such a stark difference between him being on and off, how do you think he manages that in the locker room and then just personally?
I mean, I think when he leaves the game up 10, comes back to the game down 10, I think he comes in, he's like, here we go again. I kind of feel like it's a burden. I think he realizes it's a burden, and our job. I'm not even sure if you guys know this. I got hired by the Nuggets a few months ago. I'm in the Nuggets front office now. So our job, that's crazy, I know. Our job now is to try to ease that burden, right? How do we make it a little bit easier on Nikola? But I mean, obviously we see the toll it takes. Obviously, would he prefer to score 56? Would he prefer to score 48? Hell no. Like, we know how Nikola prefers to operate. He would rather get 12, 15, and 15 rather than have to drop 48 to win. So I think it's on all of us to try to figure out. I know now I'm part of the team. Like, it's on all of us to figure out how to ease his burden. So I think we all realize that discrepancy. That is a stark discrepancy, probably historical discrepancy. And so how do we make it easier for him? I don't know. What's Mozgov and Mason Plumlee up to right now?
And Francisco Elson.
Yeah.
Damn, you guys are good. All right, Mike, let's get to your second question. During the 2023-2024 season, Jokic was asked which of his teammates would trust to care for his horses. What was his answer?
I think he said,
I have a hint if you want to.
I don't want a hint. I don't want a hint. Okay. There's two choices. There's only two reasonable choices. Ooh, there's three.
Talk it out. What are the three reasonable choices?
Let's talk it out. If we go Vlatko's Slovenian. He understands, how important and significant the horses are to him. Maybe he tends to them adequately. There's also DeAndre Jordan, who he has some level of respect. I mean, he respects DeAndre, and they're super tight. And maybe just as like a sage veteran, he's like, all right, it's my job to look out for this superstar. I can't screw up these horses. But my guess is Aaron Gordon. I think it was Aaron Gordon. Did I screw it up?
Judges, you nailed it. According to Katie Wingy, Jokic took over a minute to think before giving his answer.
He did the same iteration I did. I promise you that was his process.
All right. That means we're halfway through our game of trivia. When we come back, we take some questions from the Balkan Peninsula. So stick around. Welcome back to Trivia Tuesday. We are halfway through our game of trivia, and right now the score is 2-1. Mike, I mean, you got some catching up to do, but we got your second question coming up here. And here it is. How many horses does Jokic actually have? Is it over or under 6.5?
I'm going to bang the over. I read the excerpt. One of the excerpts I read from Mike's book talked a lot about his love for horses and how, and I'll ask Mike in a second, but how dangerously close Nikola Jokic was to not becoming a basketball player because he loves horses so much. I'm going to go over. Yeah.
Nailed it. I mean, he has at least 7. And since we have the dude who wrote the book on Jokic here, I'm wondering if you have a definitive number for us.
So I definitely would have banged the over 2. I'm pretty sure Nikola doesn't know the exact number. I'm being like completely genuine. I think he's in double digits horses. I think he has horses in Italy. I think he has horses in like Amsterdam. I think he has, and obviously he has a hell of a lot of horses in Sombor, Serbia. But I think specifically he's asked this question before and he doesn't know the answer. He'll like start to count and then he just like loses his track of thought. I'm serious about that.
So Mike, I'm really curious because the way it's written in the book, it makes it seem like, at least from the perspective of his father and his godfather and his coach, that, dude, there's a chance that this kid is just going to give up basketball and just focus on horses. We all know he loves horses, but I did not realize that there was a point where they felt threatened or they felt his basketball future was threatened by his love of horses. Was that overblown on their end, or is that real?
I mean, I don't know who could predict the future, but at that moment when Nikola was like, I think 15 or 16, he was just obsessed with horses. He would clean out their stalls in the morning. His dad, again, on this PDF that his dad wrote to me, his dad wrote he had to go to the school teacher and explain why Nikola smelled. He smelled like horses and horse manure, and he had to explain to him why this dude smelled. And Nikola explained to me, he was like, the smell kind of sticks to your hair, it sticks to your skin. Some people like it, some people don't. And it's just like this dude was obsessed with horses and like everything about the operation, to the point where he was, he kind of kept basketball at an arm's length for a time. And it wasn't overtly long. It was about 4 or 5 months stretch where he was just like, I don't really care too much about basketball. I'm really freaking good at it, but horses are like my happy place. And they basically said to him, his team of advisors, including his dad, was just like, look, man, if you are going to do the horses, if you are going to do the horse thing, you have to play basketball as well. One comes with the other. We are not going to let you just, punt on basketball because you're obsessed with the smell that horses have. Like, it's not going to work. So they had to kind of incentivize him to get back to the gym. And, I don't think Nikola would have given it up forever. He told me like at some point he wanted to go back. But it just was not his first love. And I don't know how, like, it's crazy to say this all-time great, probably a top 10 player of all time. Basketball was not his first love. I mean, he just loved competing. He loved playing, but like horses were the thing he just leaned into. And so that Nikola has alluded to that stuff before, but he's never really gone into detail. I had to go get that detail from his coach, his horse trainer, and Nikola himself.
Antonio, you'll love this. There's a part where they practice, the team would practice in the morning at the same hippodrome where the horses were kept in the stables, and like his teammates are literally begging him to come run with us and like train with us, because while they're all running, like doing laps and stuff, he's messing with the horses. He's like literally just cutting out on practice.
Yeah,
like the really cool part is he's in the middle and they're begging him to jog with him and to run with him. He's got his feet on the chariot of the horse and he takes his feet off the chariot. He mimics jogging with them just to troll them. And he's like, nah, we're good here. This is the best you're going to get from me. Like, he's a clown. He's just a clown.
The Joker.
Yeah, my follow to all this was like the notion that Jokic doesn't really seem to, he treats basketball as a day job. I was going to ask you to kind of dispel that, but it sounds like what you're saying is that is the reality, and we kind of all just have to deal with that.
To be fair, guys, Wayne Gretzky says his first love was baseball. He wanted to be a major league pitcher, I think, or something like that. So it's happened before. It's not necessarily like this unprecedented thing.
I mean, like, that's part of the reason that the title is the title, is because this dude takes everything seriously, but at the same time, he takes nothing seriously. Like, he is always messing with you. If you just operate under the assumption that it's a long play, 10, 15 press conferences in, he's holding on to a joke from the first one, and he's just screwing with you. And like, the deeper you get into the book, there's kind of a moment and a pivotal character that happened throughout the postseason run where you're like, oh my God, the level of just like he just wants to clown on people. He is so dry, so sarcastic. Everything is tongue in cheek, and he never wants you to know where you stand. He loves when you live in that like gray ambiguity space. And like, that's so he likes that everybody questions, does he work hard? Does he care? He has a joke over the entire NBA media, and nobody's ever going to really get to the bottom of it. I hope I allude to, the fact that he does take it seriously. He does care, but this dude is trying to clown on everybody. And the quicker we come to accept that, the quicker we'll all understand who he is.
I feel like I'm in Jokic therapy right now. Okay,
sure.
Let's go to our third question for Mike. Who was the second leading scorer after Jokic, obviously, on Team Serbia during the 2024 Olympics?
It had to be Bogey, right?
Judges. That is correct. He averaged 18 points per game during the tournament, including 20 versus Team USA in the semifinals.
Yeah, Bogey featured in the book. He was really helpful in talking about the 2016 Olympics. I mean, like I got him on the phone. He talked to me for like half hour, 40 minutes. Like the dude is awesome. Bogey is like a rock star dude, and was more than happy to again clown on Nikola and tell hilarious Nikola stories from the 2016 Olympics.
Yeah, we've talked to Amin on the show about how Jokic had said that loss to Team USA, getting knocked out, was the worst loss he's ever suffered. Can you maybe speak to that a bit? Like, how deeply did he feel that? How bad did he want that?
Oh, that was everybody kind of got criticized Nikola because he didn't celebrate the championship as fervently as he celebrated the bronze medal. But like comparing the two is stupid. I mean, one is like national pride at stake. Another one is, and again, is he being serious or is he not? Is just a day job that he happens to be really freaking good at, and he won the NBA championship. And I think making it so that Serbians can not puff their chest out, but walk a little taller as a result of being on the national stage and competing with the Americans. And I mean, damn near beating the Americans, right? Probably should have beat them for 95% of the game, and maybe one of the greatest teams constructed ever. And we're talking about Nikola and Bogey leading the Serbians. The fact that they took it to the wire, and then I thought was almost as more impressive, equally as impressive rather, is to have that devastating of a loss and then to come back and win the bronze medal game. Like they could have folded. They could have said, screw it. You know, we didn't win. We don't have a chance to play for gold. So be it. But to rebound and to say, look, we still have a chance to medal. So now he won the silver medal in 2016 at Rio, surprised everybody. He gave the Americans the business, by the way, in one of the preliminary games, and then to win the bronze. I don't know, man. It's kind of lining up. LA 2028. I'll be on lookout for the Serbians.
Look at that. All right, Amin, let's get to your third question. On November 8th, 2021, Jokic trucked a player from behind in response to a hard foul, sending the other player to the floor and causing them to miss over a month of the season with whiplash. Who was that player?
Okay, so I know this one very well. It was a very strongly worded topic of conversation in the group chat I'm in with a bunch of people from Miami, including one of the all-time great photos of an enraged Miami Heat team in the locker room led by Udonis Haslem, and the only thing standing in their way is Heat GM Andy Ellis-Brooks saying, guys, you can't like rush out the locker room to go beat up Nikola Jokic and his brothers or whatever. The player was Markieff Morris.
Just an expert trivia answer by Amin Elhassan there. I'm going to move us along because we're under 2 minutes to go here.
Can I make one quick aside? I'm so happy you brought this up because Amin, there's no way you remember this. I think you were Sirius XM radio at the time, and you called me up and I did an interview after he leveled Markieff, and I had Nikola's brother text me that morning saying, hey, we started this Twitter account. Can you share this Twitter account? And you called me up and you said to me, Mike, with all due respect, this is the biggest story you're ever going to have in your life. The fact that you're sitting on this Twitter, this viral Twitter moment from Nikola's brothers. They started this Twitter beef. I'm so happy you brought that up because I was very eager to drop that nugget. I don't know if you remember this, but I was sitting in quarantine and you called me and told me this. And I was like, you don't even know the half of it. I just got a voice message from Strahinja Jokic, his big scary brother, being like, yo, we started this Twitter account. Can you share this to respond to this stupid idiot? That's what he referred to the Morris brothers as.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, before we throw to break, let's get one more question for you here. What club team did Jokic play for in Serbia before being drafted by the Nuggets?
Played for Megabasket. Misko Raznadovic played for Megabasket.
That's right. It's called the Kentucky of Europe for how many players it puts in the NBA. That's pretty wild.
Serbia,
they're a factory there. There's double-digit prospects have come through there. Seriously, they pump them out.
Very nice. Well, Mike, for this part of trivia, we're going to call it here. You're currently up 4-3. But for the people listening, if you want to see who wins Jokic trivia, check us out on YouTube. But we're going to call it right here. So Mike and Amin, thanks so much for your time, guys. Welcome back to Trivia Tuesday Part 3. Never been done before. Mike, you're making history on Oddball Trivia Tuesday. Mike, I just asked you about Mega Basket. That's Jokic's team club in Serbia. How did he fall to number 41 in the draft?
I mean, I don't know if you've seen those grainy videos of him, but he doesn't exactly look the part. And one of the craziest things that I haven't shared this anywhere, but when I was in Serbia, one of his earliest coaches gave me even grainier footage, slid a USB across the table, and I have 7 games of his that have never been seen before at the club team before he played at Mega, which was in Novi Sad. It was Novi Sad Vojvodina. And
what age at this point?
At this point, he's 17 and a half. So he got to Mega at 18, right around his 18th birthday. And at 17 and a half, like, let me tell you, there's the same stuff. And at one point, I showed him clips of it, and there's him doing like stealing the ball behind the back, transition break, kick to a guy kicks it back, and he just finishes. And you're just like, and then there's my favorite clips are the ones where the body language is the exact same. So he'll like be at the elbow, he'll like have his back to the far corner, and he'll pass it to the corner, but his teammates won't be smart enough to be in the right spot. And then he'll react, he'll like roll his like shoulders, he'll get all pissed at his teammates because they're not on his level. And these dudes are like 17 and a half. And it's just funny because the body language is the exact same. So I forget what the question was. Oh, how did he fall? Aesthetically, he doesn't look the part, right? And one of the really cool things I found out is that the Nuggets GM at the time, Tim Connolly, in 2007, I believe, he was working at the Wizards, and he really was high on another big European prospect, Marc Gasol. And he really, really wanted to draft Marc Gasol. He ends up going the pick after the Wizards pick. I think he went 48th. And, it wasn't Tim's decision to make, but the way that the Nuggets kind of scouted Nikola and tried to project and envision what he would look like, they looked at Gasol, they looked at Marcin Gortat, and they looked at Nikola Pekovic. And they were like, not quote unquote elite athletes, but guys who, are physical, are legit 7 feet. And what I think is hard to project, and I just talked to Arturas Karnisovas about this 2 nights ago. He's the Bulls president, was in Denver's front office at the time, was a huge advocate. Can the quote unquote unathleticism translate? And how do you project that? I mean, he had all the coordination. He had like the court mapping. He had all the coordination. He had the ball skills as like a 7-footer. But can you envision that a guy who ostensibly can't jump very high can make an impact? And I think what him and Luka have kind of proven is that there are different skill sets that work in the NBA in different ways. And one of my favorite chapters in the book is when Nikola went to P3 in Santa Barbara, and they tested him from like all these different metrics, and via their metrics, they deduced he basically had a category of himself, but he straddled 2 categories, one that would suggest a really long NBA career and one that would suggest one that would flame out immediately. So like how predictive is it? I don't know. You can debate, but like he had like the balance and the symmetry in the coordination that suggested he might make it. And it's funny that the cluster of people, of other NBA players who he was close with, according to their metrics, guys like CJ McCollum and Trae Young, like balanced guards who can do a lot of a lot, but don't necessarily excel at anything in particular. More CJ in that regard, but like Nikola was so balanced that it suggested that he might make it in some capacity. Obviously overperformed in every metric possible.
I mean, well, first of all, Mike, that was an excellent salient answer to the question. I mean, I have a question for you that I'm sure will tee up a similar response from you.
Mm-hmm.
Amin, can you name 5 of the 7 countries that used to make up Yugoslavia?
Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, and Kosovo.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Well, I'm trying to think. What am I missing? What am I missing?
I mentioned one country earlier when I was running through my guys who he would, delegate his horse responsibilities to. Where's Vlatko Čančar?
Slovenia. How could I forget Slovenia, man? That's my guy Goran Dragic. Slovenia. That's 6. What's the 7th? Hold on.
Montenegro.
Montenegro. Yes. Montenegro. There it is.
Bravo, guys.
That is respect. Man,
Yeah,
he should
man.
get like 1.5 points for that.
So my kids, like literally in their spare time, they play like it's one of those, I think it's a Sporkle thing.
Okay.
And like the goal is how quickly can you name every single flag, like sight unseen or sight on site for each country. And so we've done this like 8 billion times. And I've run through a lot of those flags a bunch of times.
Awesome.
Real quick, guys, would Team Yugoslavia beat Team USA this season? You got Jokic, Luka, Zubac, Bogdan, Vucevic.
I mean, look, I'll go first on this one. There's an argument that Team Serbia could have beaten Team USA as is. So you start throwing in some extra names in there. I don't think it's far-fetched at all.
One of the coolest things in digging into this, and I just mentioned Arturas Karnišovas, he was on Lithuania's Olympic team
92.
in 1992 in Barcelona against the Dream Team, and AK had to guard Charles Barkley. He got his ass kicked, but and so he was sitting there on the sidelines, and he had a camera, like a snapshot camera, and he was just taking pictures of the Dream Team after I think he had fouled out of the game. So like they didn't even care. That just shows the discrepancy. They didn't even care that they just got punked. Like Lithuania is playing, obviously I think everybody kind of understood, 92 Olympics, that the Dream Team, it was the Americans to lose, and they did not. So they held their own. So it was like, you're playing for second place, fine. But just to compete on that level, and to get into the Olympic history of the Balkan era, or the Balkan region, and what international basketball means to that specific place was really, really cool. And to your earlier question, I think that's why Joker was so much more emotional upon winning this bronze medal than the championship. Like, I don't know that we've ever seen Nikola so emotional as when he was dancing on the bus. People like Nuggets fans pine to see that type of emotion from him, and it's like you can't. It's a different type of emotion. Yep. And a pride that you just can't tap into. And so I don't know, man, to again, LA 2028, everybody's on notice.
Nice. Let's get one more round in before we call trivia here. Mike, it's time for your 5th question. Jokic started his first game for the Nuggets on December 15th, 2016. Can you name one of the other players from the Nuggets starting lineup that day?
Not only can I name one of them, I can name all 4 of them, because I predicted this was going to be a question that I was going to get. It was Moutier, It was Gary, it was Wilson Chandler, and it was Danilo Gallinari. There were 2 questions I was prepared for, and that was one of them.
So I got to follow up on this one. There's a story that, obviously Yusuf Nurkic, you mentioned earlier, was a starter, and Nikola was coming off the bench. And when Coach Malone said, "Hey, we're going to start you and bring Nurk off the bench," Nikola was distraught, and by this, and he couldn't understand why, and he felt like a fraud almost. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as he is. We just gave Mike 5 points for that answer. That's great. I think one of the most fascinating things about Jokic, when I think about him, is that everyone asks, how could this top 10 player of all time have fallen in the second round? How could everyone have missed on this? Even he was kind of skeptical of just his ceiling. How did he overcome all of those emotions?
I think that he probably recognized early that his body was a limiting factor, that he hadn't really like trained correctly, that he hadn't cared about nutrition, that he hadn't stretched properly, that he hadn't been as optimized his body and as strong as it could be. So that was the limiting factor because the talent was already there. But you know, the thing about him being distraught, he was starting. They tried to pair Nikola and Nurk next to each other at the end of I think it was the 2015-2016 season. Yeah, they tried to pair them together, and it just didn't work. And they went into the next season, and they're trying it again. And that's when Nikola really was just so frustrated because he was playing the four. He's not really a four. We can't really guard fours. The offense was wonky. It wasn't flowing like it should, and he just went into Malone's office and he's like tearing up. He's crying and he's saying, "Look, man, put me on the bench. Like, let's just optimize our team. This is not working the way it's supposed to. Nurk and I are in the same space. We kind of quasi do similar things. We take up, the same, court space. Just give me the bench unit and let me do my thing." And Malone adhered to it. He said, "Fine, come off the bench." But eventually it was like you couldn't deny that everyone on the bench got better around Joker, and that Nurk, had some offensive capabilities, and was more of a traditional enforcer than Nikola, but just didn't galvanize the team like Nikola did. And eventually that date, December 15th, Malone puts him in the starting lineup, and I get into this. The game before that, they were getting smoked in Dallas, and who else was coming off the bench at that time was Jamal Murray. And so they allowed them to see Jamal and Nikola like messing around doing their two-man dance together, and they had a little pinch me moment. It was like, yo, this looks really good. Like this, we need to lean into these guys. And eventually Jamal becomes a starter, and we know what happens from then on out. But it just wasn't obvious. It was obvious to people who knew basketball and could see the practices that this guy had something special. Even to some of the vets on the team, Jameer Nelson, Mike Miller, Wilson Chandler, Gary Harris. They all kind of knew. They were like they would whisper amongst themselves, "Hey, this Balkan dude's pretty dirty. Like he kind of kills us in practice. Like if we could just get him in like good shape and his fitness level to a playable space, like I mean, then it was on. The runway was there." So I get into the physical and the nutrition and the fitness stuff and the people who were most integral in kind of making that happen, because I think, to your guys' point, I don't think he ever knew that he was going to make the NBA. He has said he was content just making it to the top level in Europe. And oh, by the way, I'm in the NBA now, and now what can I make of this?
Crazy stuff. All right, I mean, this will be your final question. Let's see if you can gain some ground here.
Score some 5 points here on one question.
Hold up. Why doesn't he get, if I got 5 points for my starters, why didn't he get 5 points for his Balkan,
First of all, way to...
Mike, welcome to the show.
Mike, you're such a nice guy. That question, what... there's no point in even trying to reason it. I mean, here, let's go for your final question. What is the name of the fruit brandy that is the go-to liquor for many people in the Balkans?
Oh, we already mentioned it. Rakia. I love it. It's delicious. It's awesome. There's actually a place in Miami called Rakia Lounge. It's on, I want to say Collins, like 10th and Collins down in South Beach. So
I think Nicola's been there.
Yeah. Okay, look, every time I go there, they're always playing Serbian music. They've got a huge, the old Yugoslavian flag is in there hanging somewhere with the big red star in the middle. Like it's just, that's a vibe. I think it's a kind of like a magnet for a lot of the Balkan guys around the league that go there whenever they're playing Miami.
I gave Nikola a copy of the book 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I gave him a big bottle of Rakia with it, and I said, "You're going to need this." And I think he appreciated it.
I think closing
Nice.
the show with some Rocky is a good way to do that. Mike, tight at the half, but you really pulled away there. Really appreciate your time. Amin, sorry for the trouncing here, but it was a great game. Learned a lot about Jokic. Mike, where can people find the book? What's the name of the book one more time? And where anything else you want to plug here at the end? Let us know.
Yeah, it's called Why So Serious? The Untold Story of NBA Champion Nikola Jokic. It's anywhere that you could find books. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target. There's even an audio book, which I didn't read. You're welcome in advance. Anyway, it's available. Just go digging for it. But it's out now. Again, appreciate you guys having me on for this.
Of course. Awesome. Mike, Amin, till next time.
Thanks, Mike.